BJ O'Neill here with Business Coach Mastery. Perhaps you're starting your coaching journey, or maybe you're considering becoming a business coach, and you're just curious, what is coaching? What does a one-on-one coaching session look like? That's what we're going to discuss today in this video training, how to conduct a well-designed one-on-one coaching session, okay? It's really important. I think you're going to walk away from some tidbits, very relational, very normal, very specific on how to do it well and how to keep a client for a very long time. Because I can tell you, done incorrectly, that's where the challenges kind of really are. Speaking of that, let's just dive in and talk about the challenge. So when we look at coaching, right, and we look at the purpose, there is a huge challenge. And that challenge is not having a plan, no plan, and really kind of shooting from the hip. And to be fair, I used to do this many years ago where, I'm an ideas guy. So I would come in with a client and we should do this, should do this, should do this. But there was no congruency. There was no flow. There was no, we should just do it kind of thing. Well, back then, 20 years ago, that's the way my brain worked. And that's not going to be successful. So just so that you know, that'll create a lot of overwhelm. It'll create a lot of frustration with your client. And you don't want to do it that way. So you must have a plan. You must have a solid plan, which is number one. We want to make sure that we have a solid plan of action that really outlines it with clarity what's going to happen, okay? So whether you create that on your own, whether you're purchasing content from somewhere, or like in our case, in our Business Coach Mastery community, our coaches are armed with an entire deck of plans that establishes strategy by strategy and step by step. And these plans, your plans, it needs to be able to make sure it's results based. In other words, it's going to move the needle. Now, I do want to quickly, add, you're going to establish, how are you going to coach someone? Is it going to be operational, profitability, helping with goals and vision and whatnot? It doesn't matter what it is, but you do want to make sure that there is a clarity on what you're doing in those coaching sessions. Like in our world, a significant amount of time is spent on profitability by design, because most businesses don't have a lot of profitability. And it's great to be operational and goals and plans, but if they're not making any money, that business is not going to succeed. So we're very specific on some of those strategies about being focused on profit, right? So you need to figure that out in your plan. What are you going to focus on, okay? The second thing is time. You want to make sure that there is a good understanding of what the coaching session time-wise is going to look like. In normal cases, most sessions are around 60 minutes, 2 to 3 times per month. That's just kind of how you want to do it. We used to do it weekly. We just kind of found over time, especially since COVID, it's just a lot for a business owner to go through. Now, some still do it, but 2 to 3 times per month is becoming more and more of a standard in 60-minute sessions. But here's what you want to do. You're establishing it right off the bat. Hey, we've got our 60 minutes to go here. Remember, they're busy. And we can't just talk all the time. And you got to be very cognitive of time, making sure that you're getting it done, okay? We're not there just to rattle, some call it chin music. We're not just there just to flab our gums and just have a conversation. They're paying you for advancement of growth at some level. So we want to, number one, establish time. And number two, you got to kind of keep the clock in your mind as you're going through. And here's how you can do that. You're going to say just a couple of times, you don't want to do this a lot throughout the session, but certainly at the bottom of let's say that you started at 10 a.m., for instance, okay? When it gets to 10:30, and you'll tell them ahead of time, you should, hey, just so that you know, I am going to watch the clock just to make sure we're accomplishing what needs to be accomplished inside of our 60 minutes today. When it gets down to the bottom of the hour, say, all right, we've got 30 minutes left. Let's make sure that, we're, getting this, and this done. Again, whatever your agenda may be. But that it helps you provide a marker and kind of recenters the conversation so that everyone's aware of how much time is left. Then essentially what I do is that when you're getting 10 till, is I will say something like, all right, in our remaining 10 minutes. So what we have done, because I'm telling you, you'll be very professional. It will be very evident that you know what you're doing. It'll make sense that I'm protecting your time. I know your time is valuable. So you establish it at the top of the hour, you establish it at the bottom of the hour, and with 10 minutes to go in our remaining 10 minutes. Then, let's just say that you're just getting into some really deep conversation. Our 60 minutes is up. You're feeling just out of just your gut, man, I hate to lose what we're not quite done. So rather than just blowing past your 60 minutes, you want to make an invitation like this. Listen, man, we've got some good stuff going on. You're getting some good clarity. We're making some strides, whatever the case may be. Do you have another 10 minutes in you to finish this off today? Would you mind if we extended our time by 10 minutes or whatever? That just at least it makes the invitation for them to say yes or no. They may say, man, I would love to, but I've got another meeting that I have to get to, blah, blah, blah. So you want to make sure that there is a good clarity on time. All right, your role. You want to establish your role inside the coaching session. Meaning, hey, so listen, I'm here as your guide. I'm going to support you, but here's what I'm also going to do. As your coach and as your strategist, I may do a couple of things. One, I may push back on you to help you think. All right. What I'm not going to do is just rubber stamp every single thing that you say. That I would not do you a favor. But I want you to be open-minded. I'm going to stretch your thinking. I want to help you see things that you can't. We're going to talk about some opportunities that you may not be aware of right now. And if you are not sure, or you even potentially disagree, which is totally fine, here's what I'm going to encourage you to do. At least think about it for a moment before you discount a thought, because my job is to help you grow. And I can't help you grow if I don't stretch you, okay? The job of a rubber band is only in one state, stretched. It has no value when it's just sitting there, right? Its only job is to stretch itself to perform its function. That's kind of what my job is. If I'm not stretching you at some level and providing a little bit of discomfort, because growth comes outside the comfort zone. So be prepared for that. That is my role. So I hope you see how that works. You want to make sure that you're establishing the role. All right. So then as you're getting into the session, you want to make sure at the very top you establish a goal. All right. You want to make sure that there's good clarity that when we are done here, when we're done with our 60 minutes, this is what we want to see happen. It may go through this framework, complete these things, list out, your debtors, like whatever the thing is. You want to make sure that at the top, establish the goal of what's going to happen in that session. And as you're going session to session, sometimes you're establishing those goals all throughout. Like there may be 3 sessions over one goal. Totally fine. You just got to make sure that there's an establishment. So you never want a client to go, okay, what are they trying to accomplish here? Like that's not good news. We want to make sure that there's good clarity on making sure that everybody's on the same page. Speaking of, the next step is clarity. All right. You want to make sure, okay, I can't type right. There we go. Clarity. You want to make sure that there's clarity as you're providing feedback. All right. You want to make sure that there's clarity. So let's say that you are coaching something that they are not aware of just yet, or they don't know how to do, or you're truly teaching them and you're training them. As you're going through it, you want to stop, you want to pause, and be able to say things like, so is that making sense? If it's not, let's work it out. Let's talk it through. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like you got good clarity? Tell me now. If you don't, let's kind of work through it. And that's the reason why you want to stop, pause, kind of towards as you're working through it, certainly as you're establishing a point. So let's talk about X, Y, Z. Da 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 da. Does that make sense? Do you understand the purpose of that? Do you understand the why behind that? That gives them permission and the ability to go, no, I really don't. And so therefore, you want to make sure that you are establishing great clarity. All right. Then you want to make sure that you're tracking and you're taking great notes. All right. Establishing and tracking, take notes. Do not assume, because you won't, do not assume that you're going to remember the next session next week or the week after and so on. And so you got to make sure that you're taking notes all throughout the process, especially the ones that are important, that there's going to be action and activity. throughout the time, you are going to assign tasks, and on who is responsible for what. What are they responsible for? What are you responsible for? What are team members responsible for? You want to make sure that you walk through all of that so that there's great clarity on what the expectations. And then in your next sessions, as you're reviewing what was accomplished, they know that they're expecting that the question is, let's review what we were supposed to get done last week or last session or whatever and see where we are. And so let's just say that they didn't get it done. It's like, well, I wasn't able to complete it. Okay, totally understand. Can you share with me why? Because what you're wanting to do in those moments is maybe that they're like mega distracted, or they're disorganized, or maybe some of the actions and the activities, there's some fear that comes along with it with them. You want to be able to iron that out and help them get clarity as to why they can't get progress, okay? And then your job in that role, by the way, is always to push. Oh, there we go. You want to push for, what's the word that makes sense? You want to push to make sure that they are being vulnerable and that they are being forthright with how they feel, with what's going on inside this session. And if you sense, and the word push, push or pull, honestly, push or pull, you want to get it out of them. All right. You don't want to leave things on the table. You want to make sure that they're not just clarity, that they don't even always have to agree with it. You just, like, if they don't agree, the pulling and pushing is, why don't you agree? What is stopping you? What's the mindset issue here? Why are you fearful of this? Like, you want to make sure that you're pulling all that together. And the last thing for now is to set the tone for the next session. Here's what we went through. Here's what we're going to kind of look at next week. Here's what needs to happen in the middle. Okay? So prayerfully, this makes sense to you and gives you some guidelines. Here's the one thing I can't stress enough. We have to have a plan. All right? We have to, establish time. We have to have a strong role and establish that role. We want to make sure that there's goals, clarity. Make sure there's notes. You're assigning tasks. You want to push and pull to get the vulnerable, truth, out of them. You certainly want to establish the tone. But over all of that, you want to make sure that you make this highly relational. You don't want this session to be analytical. You don't want it to be just step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. You want to create an environment of safety. You want to create an environment that they can exhale when they don't agree, when they're frustrated, when they don't really like the process. That's where the money's at. In other words, that's where you're helping them. Now, you don't want to sabotage things. You don't want to push too hard and pull too hard, because sometimes we all go through spots where just leave me alone, right? Like, I'm not in the mood right now. You're going to come across that. I would prefer someone to say, I'm just not in the headspace and in the mood to do this right now, meaning to do the work that's required for growth. I totally understand that. So let me ask you, if you're not in the mood and mindset, how long do you want to wait? And what are you kicking down the road while you're not in the mood? Like, you want to be able to talk to them at a level to where, because again, they're paying somebody here to move them from where they are today to where they need to be in growth. And by just saying, sure, yeah, okay, yeah, and you're just agreeing all the time, that's not going to get it done. So hope that makes sense to you. I hope that helps you. If you're interested, if you're considering, you know what? I love the idea of coaching. I love the idea of making an impact in the lives of others. I love the idea of being a part of the process to grow profitability in my community, or with businesses, wherever you decide you want to coach. But you don't have a process, you don't have a plan, you don't have a system, you don't have a structure. You're just curious, like, what does that look like? I encourage you to go to businesscoachmastery.com. There's some information there that you can look at to see what we do with a done-for-you system designed specifically for Christian men. And just to be able to say, okay, I could see myself doing this. I don't have the resources and tools. That's where we come in. If you're interested in talking about it too, you can schedule a time there, businesscoachmastery.com. Until next time, take care.